Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Restoration in the Asia Pacific, Moving Towards Action. My name is Aidai Jumasheva, an ambassador of the Evergreening Alliance and program officer at the Asian Forest Cooperation Organization, or AFOCO. I am honored to be your moderator today at this very important event for the Asia Pacific and the whole Asian region. This year, Global Evergreening Alliance led the Asia Pacific Regional Resilience Hub to gather key messaging from the region for COP27. The aim of the Asia Pacific Regional Resilience Hub is to ensure that the programming of the main Resilience Hub reflects perspectives and priorities from the region, including actions, solutions, and challenges. I'm sure some of you already know about the Global Evergreening Alliance, which is leading the Asia Pacific Regional Hub. But for those who don't know about who we are, maybe you would like to know more. For that, we would like to invite Chris Armitage, CEO of the Global Evergreening Alliance, to make opening remarks and brief introduction to the Global Evergreening Alliance and its enormous ambitions. Chris, the floor is yours. Maybe I will give you.
Thank you very much, Aidai, and welcome to everybody for this, what we hope is going to be an incredibly impactful and an informative event this morning. I'd like to start by just saying a few words about the Global Evergreening Alliance, a few words of introduction. We're an alliance that was created by many of the most capable and experienced NGOs and technical and research organisations around the world. And we were created to build on their collective visions to overcome the challenges of food insecurity and acute rural poverty, and to both adapt to and mitigate the impacts of climate change at a globally significant scale. We do this by leveraging the particular strengths, the capacities, and the existing programs of all grassroots program developers, and facilitating the collaborative design and implementation of cost-effective and impactful community-driven land restoration approaches at almost any scale. In recent years, we've significantly changed our focus from working to mobilise grant funding to working with the private sector. In particular, with large global corporates, which have developed strategies to avoid and reduce their carbon footprints, but which need to offset what can't be avoided or reduced quickly enough. Together with our member organisations and key stakeholders, we've developed an investable model for large-scale community-led land restoration. But unlike most carbon programs, ours isn't designed to maximise the carbon being sequestered in the landscape. It's focused explicitly on maximising the benefits to communities, the human development outcomes and the environmental restoration outcomes that increase the direct benefits to food security and rural economic empowerment. Programs are designed with communities to ensure they focus on adopting the practices that the farmers on the ground most want, the practices that increase the productivity, the reliability, and the resilience of their farming systems, and practices that allow them to participate more equitably in local value chains and local markets. These practices can dramatically increase food production in a completely sustainable way while sequestering enormous amounts of carbon into the landscape. Earlier this year, we started implementing Africa's largest ever community-led land restoration program in partnership with Climate Asset Management. And this is an effort that's entirely funded by the private sector. And on Wednesday, you might have heard an announcement from Climate Impact Partners of another $330 million to support these efforts, of which $150 million is intended for Asia. And these developments are important for vulnerable communities around the world because they demonstrate a significant paradigm shift in the way grassroots land restoration programs can be financed at massive scale and significantly contribute to global climate change mitigation. Thanks, and back to Aidai.
Thank you so much, Chris. As a lead to the Asia-Pacific Regional Resilience Hub, the Global Evergreening Alliance held 4 rounds of closed-door roundtables to foster open and honest dialogue within the region. Key messages that have come out to highlight the strong need to go beyond talk and create actions. 3 themes were water rights, land tenure, and climate finance and investment. Today, you will hear from the participants of the roundtable on these 3 themes. Without further ado, I would like to invite the first speaker, Lucia Gamara, Senior Partnership and Impacts Officer of the Australian Water Partnership, to speak on the top issues related to the water in Asia-Pacific region. Yeah, Lucia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ada. So thank you very much for the invitation. And thank you for providing this space and platform to talk about top water issues in the Asia-Pacific. I'll talk about 3 key issues, the first one being water scarcity. Water scarcity has different dimensions. One of them is that there's too little water. In places like India, for example, people depend heavily on groundwater resources and they are being depleted. Water can also be too polluted, which means that you can't really use it. This is a huge issue considering that today 50% of the world's population lives in cities. Now this is meant to increase to 68% by 2050. This means that the rapid urbanization rate won't be able that the continuation of service provision won't be able to keep up with the rapid urbanization rate. And this is further exacerbated by climate change. On the other hand, farmers, the biggest consumer of water, are also affected by too little water and too polluted water. And us as the consumers of food are also affected. The third component of water scarcity that I'll speak to you about today is too variable. You can't really predict, project and secure water for populations, for farmers, if the water is too variable. Now, going to the irrigation part of things, in Asia Pacific, the area of irrigated land can go from 2% to 20%, so not really enough. That not only affects the yield of crops and the consumers at the end of time, but it also affects farmers and their own social stability, their livelihoods. The second issue in the Asia-Pacific related to water. So the first one is water scarcity. The other one is the other extreme, too much water. So in the Pacific particularly, they are quite prone to cyclones. Cyclones leads to flooding, flooding leads to landslides, landslide leads to loss of land, loss of infrastructure, and harm to people at the end of the day. The third issue, and that's not an issue, just in the Pacific, but Southeast Asia has a lot of issues with flooding, and we just saw the floods in Pakistan. So the Southeast Asia region that starts maybe in East Asia, it will be most impacted because of the glacier area, the third pole, which is the most sensitive to changes in climate. So they will have another extreme of more floods, and when the glaciers continue to melt, they will have drier and drier periods. The third issue, and to finalize my intervention, is of water governance. So with water governance, what do I mean? We are thinking about, are we giving the right amount of water to the right people? Is that the right amount of water? Who is the right people? And finally, how do we decide this? We have to start thinking more about the amount of water that we use, how we allocate it, and how we're actually using for a more equitable and sustainable outcome. Thank you very much, Ada.
Thank you so much, Lucia. To share his thoughts about the top issues related to climate finance in the Asia-Pacific region, let me now invite Orko Sinha Roy, Senior Climate Change Specialist of the Asia Development Bank. Thank you.
Thank you, and a very good morning, everybody. Thanks for inviting us. So I will highlight the climate finance issues, but primarily from a point of view of climate adaptation and resilience space in which I work. So I think sometimes we forget climate finance is meant for equitable climate outcomes. which means that at the end of the day, we're talking about finance that improves the lives, livelihoods, well-being of people. Now, if we put that in as a main objective, I think there are three issues which we need to overcome. One is, to date, climate finance has largely been seen as an incrementality or an additionality to make development, let's say, climate-proofed. While that is important, we think we need to move beyond it and see how climate finance can actually be used to steer development in the right direction. The second issue for climate finance which we have faced is climate finance is not always used very strategically. We have limited finance available from climate side of it. So we really have to be strategic and actually use it for purposes that are much more transformational, because at the end of the day, the climate emergency is unfolding along with a lot of other global trends, whether it's biodiversity loss or increase in inequality, increase in poverty. So we have to see how we can use climate finance more strategically, and as we were discussing, to really see how it can help do transformational elements, including empowerment of communities at the end of the day. And the third issue with climate finance is it's very project-based. While projects are good, of course, at the end of the day, climate risk is much more systemic. So you need a financial architecture which responds to that systemic nature of climate risk and not just through project financing, which means you need to have a whole range of a basket of financing instruments available, starting with which encourages reforms in the policy space or results-based climate financing, or even financing that goes through financial intermediaries and able to aggregate small outputs at an outcome level. So for me, these three key issues are important to move beyond incrementality, to really use climate finance more strategically towards transformational work, and to really see how climate finance can move beyond project-based support to much more policy reforms type of support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Okro. Now we would like to give the floor to Caroline van Tilburg, Senior Carbon Investment Manager of the Climate Asset Management, who will share thoughts about bringing the gap between investment and the small projects. Caroline.
Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to be here. I would also like to touch base on land tenureship, because that comes with aggregation, and that comes actually, there needs to be clarity for us to invest in those models. So, as I said, I'm working for Climate Asset Management, which is a partnership between HSBC and Pollination. And our investment strategy is to invest in nature, and especially in nature-based solutions. And our investment is actually based on carbon credits, because it's the carbon credits that we seek as a return, and we provide those carbon credits back to the investors in our strategy. And the carbon credits actually come from the smallholder farmers. So land tenureship, clearance of that, and how the carbon rights from the smallholder farmers can actually be translated or transferred to the project developers, so subsequently back to us, is really important for us. So we always look at land tenureship. But on the other hand, as a fund, we also don't want to enter, or the project developer doesn't want to enter into multiple land agreements with each individual farmer. So what we typically support is an aggregation model. So the aggregator will then enter through free, prior and informed consent with the farmers. The farmers agree to implement certain activities, and in return of those activities, the farmer assigns the right to the carbon back to the project developer and subsequently back to us. But that carbon right can only be transferred if there's very clear land tenureship, and it's typically linked to the ownership. So clear ownership of the land that allows for the transfer of carbon rights on an aggregated model, so it actually supports us as a financier to invest in those projects against the future revenue stream is really of importance to us, because ultimately that is the currency under which our investment is going to be repaid. So we're really looking for clear land tenureship and obviously an aggregating model in order to create the necessary scale. And in that sense, the Global Evergreening Alliance, with their activities and their role as an aggregator, really can support in transitioning this market and ultimately the flow of financing that goes into those vulnerable communities and ultimately help to create a better planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Collaboration across sectors is essential in the fight against climate change, and strong partnership with different stakeholders can unlock and provide innovative solutions. For that, the Evergreening Alliance has partnered with the Asian Forest Cooperation Organization, or AFOCO, and CIFOR-ICRAF to establish the Landscape Partnership Asia with an ambitious goal to restore 10 million hectares of drylands and drought-prone areas across the Asia by 2032. As a part of my role at AFOCO, I support the LPA Secretariat, and I would like to say a few words about this landmark initiative in Asia. Asia has the most degraded land than anywhere else in the world. In Asia, drylands represent over 50% of the continent's land surface. Land degradation is negatively affecting the well-being of the world's critical dryland ecosystems, which are home to 2.5 billion people. The continuing degradation of these landscapes has enormous environmental, social, and economic implications. To restore drylands, improve livelihoods, and support national and international goals for sustainable development in the region, we have started a targeted initiative to scale that has never been seen before. To address this gap, the LPA was established and officially launched on May 2nd, 2022, during the World Forestry Congress in Seoul, Republic of Korea. At least 15 countries in Central, East, South, and Southeast Asia have already confirmed their participation in LPA, with many more expected to join. The efforts under LPA will mitigate the impacts of the climate crisis, build the resilience of forests, rangelands, and agricultural landscapes, and improve livelihoods within the next 10 years and beyond. To provide a few additional insights into LPA, I would like to share a brief video.
In Asia than anywhere else in the world. The continuing degradation of these landscapes has enormous environmental, social, and economic implications. To restore drylands, improve livelihoods, and support national and international goals for sustainable development in the region, we need a targeted initiative at a scale that has never been seen before. Landscape Partnership Asia is that ambitious initiative. It is the largest restoration program across Asia, with the initial aim of restoring 10 million hectares of degraded forests and agricultural lands in Central, East, South, and Southeast Asia by 2032. The partnership is a collaboration initiated by its 4 founders: Asian Forest Cooperation Organization, Center for International Forestry Research and World Agroforestry, and the Global Evergreening Alliance. Jointly with other partners, our efforts will mitigate the impacts of the climate crisis, build the resilience of forests, rangelands, and agricultural landscapes, and improve livelihoods within the next 10 years and beyond. Join us. Together, we can restore drylands and drought-prone areas across Asia for a better future.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we would like to invite everyone to watch a brief video from the launch of a regional community-led restoration program called Restore Southeast Asia.
The effects of climate change in Southeast Asia are evident, and it has disrupted the ecological balance. Now, it's time to turn words into actions by getting targeted investments into the region and implementing community-led regenerative practices. Forging ahead in this massive endeavor to green up to cool down, the Global Evergreening Alliance is launching Restore Southeast Asia, one of the largest nature-based carbon removal programs in the region. Spanning 6 countries in Southeast Asia, this program is community-focused and led. It will support over 600,000 households and restore over 600,000 hectares of degraded land, all while aiming to capture over 84 million tons of carbon. With an overall investment of $275 million, the program will create sustainable and productive farming practices, sustain rural communities, and create long-term economic empowerment. Collectively, we can change our land, our climate, and our future to be greener, cooler, and viable.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's now with great pleasure that I invite Chris Armitage, Chief Executive Officer of the Global Evergreening Alliance, to share with us a few insights into the Restore Southeast Asia program.
Thanks very much, Aidai. So Restore Southeast Asia is our umbrella for regional community-led land restoration programs across Southeast Asia. As with all of the Global Evergreening Alliance's programs, Restore Southeast Asia is being collaboratively designed with our member organizations, with governments across the region, with participating communities, and with all key stakeholders. And they're being designed to align with the interests and the objectives of the Landscape Partnership Asia that we've just heard about, with a significant focus on supporting small-scale farmers and pastoralists and forest-dependent communities to adopt more productive and sustainable practices across the drylands and drought-prone areas of the region, to deliver more profitable livelihoods and local value chains, and to significantly increase the resilience of the most vulnerable communities to the impacts of climate change. We're currently working with 3 separate investors to develop a portfolio of complementary programs with a combined budget of around $275 million US. Initially, we're focusing on 6 countries, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Timor-Leste, and Indonesia. And as part of this effort, I'm incredibly proud to announce this morning a partnership with Mirova to deliver a $90 million US 6-country land restoration program, of which the first $15 million will be deployed in the Philippines. But I'll leave it to our colleague from Mirova to tell you a bit more about this initiative. Thanks very much, Aidai.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much, Chris. We have now heard about one of the largest nature-based carbon removal programs in Asia, the Restore Southeast Asia program. Let's now listen to one of the investors of this amazing program. We are now honored to hear from Gyoti Keru, who is the Investment Director and Land Degradation Neutrality Fund Project Manager at Mirova.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gauthier Keru, and I'm Managing Director for Natural Capital Activities at Mirova. Mirova is an affiliate of Natixis Investment Managers and is fully dedicated to sustainable development. As such, we have developed for 10 years investment solutions to address many challenges of our times and support a global ecological transition with special focus on climate change mitigation and adaptation, biodiversity protection, and social inclusion, as well as gender empowerment. Over the past years, we have developed a series of funds and investment strategies to support projects and activities in emerging markets with the ability to mobilize public and private capital at scale. And we have raised more than $500 million for natural capital to date, and have supported so far more than 30 projects and programs on the ground all around the world. While nature-based solutions, which are the topic of this announcement today, have been a top priority, as well as we all know that the protection of nature is crucial to meet the Paris Agreement objectives. And in this perspective, the there is a real need to support innovative programs and projects all around the world. And actually, Southeast Asia has a great potential for nature-based solution, but many countries in the region have been underrepresented in climate finance. And to channel more capital on the ground, we need to develop a real carbon value chain able to allocate large amounts of capital available to large numbers of operators and smallholders on the ground. And so with all of these elements, and in this context, we are very proud today to take part of this announcement and to team up with the Global Evergreening Alliance and announce this partnership around the Restore Southeast Asia program. It is a very important initiative to us because implementing such partnerships allow really efficient connection between investors and local NGOs, with Mirova and GEA acting in the middle as intermediaries to optimize and make this resource allocation even more efficient and with strong integrity. What we like with GEA, it's their really capacities to work with local communities. It has been really instrumental to us, and especially to support farmer-managed natural regeneration activities and other local agroforestry approaches to restore land, trees, strengthen ecosystem, and above all, improve livelihoods. So we are looking forward now to turn this partnership announcement into concrete actions on the ground for the benefit of climate, biodiversity, and local communities in Southeast Asia. And I wish you a very successful event and a good COP27. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have only a few minutes left for the questions or comments. If you have any questions or comments by participants or speakers, the floor is open. Do you have additional comments? Yes, please.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alan Levi from GEO ONG Humanitas. We are based in London, but we're working around the world with Congo Basin, and we would like to take this opportunity to have more information regarding climate change, carbon removal program. What we just mentioned, it's very important if it's possible to come to our region to improve as well in this kind of program. It will be fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it was a comment, and any responses from the speakers?
Yeah, it's not really a question, but I'm happy to have further discussions with you. For us, for climate asset management is important, as I said earlier, when I described the carbon right and the land tenureship, that ultimately that is in place because we invest in nature against the future flow of carbon credits that are designed with and for communities. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And just to add a little bit to what Caroline just mentioned, we're now starting to work at much larger scales in designing regional programs led by governments and actors on the ground, working with communities across very large areas of Africa. And I mean, these are community-led efforts, first and foremost designed to maximize human development and environmental outcomes, but designed to be investable so that we can mobilize very large-scale resources to support programs at really significant scales. We're already in the process of doing that in the early stages of developing a much larger regional program. So we'd certainly like to talk to you more about your involvement in the process. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Caroline and Chris. Now, I would like to sincerely thank our speakers and participants, and of course, our fantastic audiences for supporting this wonderful event. We strongly believe that the Asia Pacific Regional Resilience Hub will gather knowledge and evidence from government, academia, the private sector, and civil society in order to scale up actions toward the common objective of making communities and ecosystems safer and healthier. If you would like to know more about the Global Evergreening Alliance and how you can get involved with its important work, please follow up with us after this event. Thank you so much.